The White House this morning is one step closer to stopping the Iran nuclear deal from being killed in the Senate. 31 Democratic senators now support the agreement. The White House needs 34 votes to prevent Republicans from sinking the accord. Former Vice President Dick Cheney and his daughter Liz are with us for their first live interview about their new book, which condemns the president's policy. They write, quote, "The Obama agreement will lead to a nuclear-armed Iran, a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, and more than likely the first use of a nuclear weapon since Hiroshima and Nagasaki." The book, Exceptional: Why the World Needs a Powerful America, is published by Simon & Schuster. That's a division of CBS. Vice President Cheney also served as Defense Secretary under the first President Bush, and Liz Cheney is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Welcome to both of you. So great to see you.
Thank you, Nora.
Mr. Vice President, let me ask you, the White House says that the deal will do the opposite, that it will prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Why are you so sure that no deal is better than this deal?
I think we can get a better deal. That is to say, I think you need to go back. If you look at the original objectives, no nukes for the Iranians, no enrichment capability of the Iranians, those were all legitimate objectives. But they were all rejected and dumped during the course of the administration. And the concessions that were made by Barack Obama and his team not only deal with the nuclear problem, but they also deal with ballistic missiles, they deal with non-nuclear conventional weapons that were never intended to be part of the negotiations. But as an effort to make concessions to the Iranians, they made concessions in several of these areas as well, too.
But this is the world, P5+1, that has agreed on this deal. It's not just a U.S. deal. We've got a world. So we have your criticism against what are essentially all the world leaders saying this is worth doing.
Well, I think it's actually a situation, if you look just at the United States, for example, you've got over 70% of the people in the United States oppose the deal because they recognize, and you said it, Nora, you know, what we know now, seeing the details in this deal, are that just about everything the president told us about the deal has turned out to be false. It won't, in fact, stop the Iranians from having a nuclear weapon. It will give them a pathway to an arsenal of nuclear weapons. It makes war more likely, not less likely. And I think the administration has tried very hard, and the president, to paint those who oppose the deal as somehow advocating war, when in fact a vote for this deal is not a vote for peace. It's a vote to unleash nuclear weapons potentially across the Middle East.
There is support, though, from the military, retired military for this, and from people in your own party, including Brent Scowcroft, the former national security advisor to President Ford and the first President Bush, who said there is no credible alternative were Congress to prevent U.S. participation in this deal. If we walk away, we walk away alone.
I disagree. I think what you can do is, if Congress will reject the deal, which I hope they will, and then override the president's veto, then you can go back to the negotiating table again. You need to reimpose sanctions. You need to make certain that you only lift them when you achieve those conditions that were originally hoped for. And you need to be prepared, for example, to make the threat of military action very credible. You've got to rebuild America's defenses, and when you say all options are on the table, you've got to mean it. And Barack Obama gave all of that away before he ever got down to the final package, and he believed and operated based on this proposition that multiple concessions in areas that had nothing to do with nuclear weapons, but that will significantly increase Iran's support as the chief sponsor of terror in the world. That's a terrible outcome to have. It's got nothing to do with the nuclear side of the business, but it's going to further by over $100 billion, lifting sanctions on key people like the head of the Quds Force. All of these things are going to make Iran an even worse model of behavior in the Middle East than they are now.
We also want to ask you, because in addition to that topic, you're both very hypercritical about some of the decisions that have led to the rise of ISIS. I want to ask you, Mr. Vice President, a lot of people have said that you were so involved in that decision in 2003 to go into Iraq. Do you feel like some of the critics say you have some responsibility for the rise of ISIS?
When we got through in Iraq at the end of our administration, Iraq was in good shape. We'd had the surge. The president made a very courageous decision in 07, and we had 07 and 08 where we established a coalition government in Iraq, for example. Sunni involved as well as Shia, significantly expanded the capabilities of the Iraqi armed forces. The situation in Iraq at our departure was a very good one. Obama himself said as much. So the situation arose. We got into difficulty there when he pulled out all the troops. There was no stay-behind agreement, no advisors left in Iraq. And the vacuum that was created is what led ultimately to the rise of ISIS.
Let's turn now to politics and the presidential race. I know you both watch it very closely, certainly what's happened in the Republican field. What do you make of Donald Trump?
You know, one of the reasons that we wrote this book when we did, not to interrupt.
No, it's all right.
Come on, the vice president seemed ready to spill some beans on what he thinks about
Good
Donald
time.
Trump. Thanks, Liz.
No problem, Nora, anytime. No, but in all seriousness, you know, we've decided that we're not going to endorse anybody in this race, and it's in large part because the book is very much focused on the issue that we think is critically important in the race, and that's national security. And we make the case that it's an urgent set of issues that the next president's got to address.
How do you think Donald Trump would handle national security?
You know, I think that we've decided that we're going to talk about the policy and the substance of these issues. You know, and I think, frankly, the real challenge is going to be for Secretary Clinton to try to separate herself from, you know, what we detail in the book, very well-documented set of issues in terms of the danger that this president has put us in. And she, of course, was there for a large part of it. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, we want you to. Yes, please go ahead.
No, the thing
Would
that I
you,
want
in
to
any
emphasize,
scenario, ever support Donald Trump?
I will support the nominee of my party, which I traditionally have done.
No matter who it is.
I will support the nominee of my party.
You said back in 2009 you were a big fan of Jeb's.
I am. I thought Jeb was a good governor. I have not endorsed him for president. I haven't endorsed anybody. One of the good things, I think, is we've got a lot of quality candidates out there on the Republican side. But what our focus has to be, the thing we care about more than anything else, is this issue, the fact that the United States is increasingly threatened around the world by the Russians and the Chinese and ISIS, and our military capability has fallen dramatically. We're less able to influence events today than we've been at any time in recent history. And so we want this issue front and center. And I'm not a candidate. I don't have any axe to grind, except we're focused specifically on trying to make certain that for our party, this issue is front and center.
And have any of the candidates asked you for your advice?
Yes.
And you've given it?
Private conversations, yes.
Yeah.
But you're not actually formally advising any candidates.
I haven't put my name to advising any candidate. Occasionally I'll get calls, and I'm happy to answer those calls, but again, always on the basis that it's not something we discuss with the press.
Liz, will you seek political office in the future?
I don't know. We'll see. I don't have any plans to right now. I'm very focused again on these issues and on my 5 kids. But we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Vice President Cheney and Liz Cheney, thank you both for being here.
you.
And Exceptional goes on sale tomorrow.